Right.
I would help you, but I think that computer would stop working.
All right, guys, we are here. It's Friday morning. We're doing Recovery Live. I got some of the best employees Came to Believe has to offer with me. Lisa, aka Snappy Baskins, and god dang it, I left my phone on again this time. We're gonna have to pregame that.
You're in trouble, Sean.
I am definitely in trouble. And we have Casera new to the team, but you know, it's kind of hard. I shouldn't be so hard on Tom. He's one of the best employees too. And what you guys don't know about this is that since I'm on the board, I'm technically Tom's boss, so he's not here to defend himself. So I'm pretty excited to be able to share that. And I'm also excited to share that for a long time, Tom has been trying to get Lisa on the show, but he could not. He failed to succeed. And here I am bringing it to the finish line. So welcome to you too.
Thanks for having us. Although I think we're still missing your song and dance, Sean. That was the conditions for me coming on. We got a happy birthday, but Autumn agreed last week that wasn't enough.
Well, you guys will be happy to know that my brother and I are working on a separate show called The Religious Detox, and one of the segments is Dancing with Jesus, where I will be going out in public and finding people, talk about how fun Jesus is, and then we're going to dance together. So there you'll get your dancing video. So Lisa is the wizard behind the scene, like Tom always says, but she's not behind the screen. She is actually up front. So she'll be doing Facebook stuff today. And unfortunately, if you tuned in the last time Casera was on, there was a high anticipation for some flute playing, but that will not be taking place today. So I'm pretty bummed about that. But we are starting a band. I'm gonna play the drums. She's gonna play the flute. We're looking for a singer and a name. So if you guys could put in the comment section what band name you would give us, that would be awesome. So, well, our friend Tom, you might be wondering, where is Tom? I mean, have you guys where's Tom, right, guys?
No, I miss him already.
Wow.
He has barely talked to me this week. But guess what? Tom is actually off on some important business in New York. He's doing some fundraising. He's had some success thus far. He's met with some pretty awesome people with deep pockets, which is really awesome when you're fundraising. And they like us. They like the mission. They like what we have going on. They want to help us move forward. So we're pretty pumped about that. But we miss Tom. So everybody, you'll see him next week. I think he's watching. So hi, Tom. How you doing, buddy? Probably with Steve right now. So
Dale's cool. Not even missing him. Dale just said, Tom who? He's ready to move on.
You know, Dale misses Tom all the time. I know you do, Dale. So you can't lie to us. You really miss Dale. So we got some upcoming retreats going on, right, guys? I know there's some in England. We got some coming up here in America. The Leesburg retreat, the founding retreat, the first one coming up in November. So if you're interested in finding out when a retreat is happening near you, you just go to cametobelieverecovery.org. We got all the events up there. We also have meetings, weekly meetings. So if you're looking for a list of the weekly meetings to see if there's one in your area, go to cametobelieverecovery.org and you can find a list of meetings there. There's some virtual ones too that we can all get on. I've been on virtual Came to Believe meetings that were in England, which works really nice if you have a lunch break. And, you know, for me, it ends up being about noon when they're having theirs at night. And then I can do my meeting during lunch and hang out with a bunch of people from across the pond. And it ends up being a fun time. So you can find those on cametobelieverecovery.org. You got any names of some people checking in for us, Lisa?
Yeah, Tim Seitz is here. Melissa is joining us from the UK, who thinks it's interesting that I'm on Recovery Live today. So hey, Melissa. We have Kelly Maloney also joining us. We've already said Dale, and of course, Doc Roth is with us again this week. So it's good to see everybody.
Yes. And unfortunately, Lisa told us before the show that she didn't promote this one as much as she promotes the other ones. And then she was talking about wearing a mask too. Like, it'd be funny if she came on with a Jason mask or something. It is Halloween, so it would have worked.
True. It's true. Next time, if you get me on another time. I don't do well with the spotlight. That's why I like hiding behind the screen. So.
I know it'd be funny if your whole screen was blurred out.
Right.
And your voice was changed like in those cop documentaries where it's
missed opportunity.
So why don't each of you, we'll start with Lisa. Why don't you tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself and what you do for Came to Believe?
Yeah. So I've been with Came to Believe for about a year now. I've known Tom for way too long. We worked together at a university prior to that. But I have been working on a lot of the business processes and getting the website with the events, making sure people get emails about upcoming retreats and meetings. So a lot of that behind the scenes stuff, that's where I'm most comfortable. You probably won't see me at a retreat. I am socially awkward. So I tend to shy away from those types of events. But yeah, you'll see emails from me. I will be working with Casera, with volunteers, and just trying to rally the troops and get everybody, helping and doing what our mission is.
Awesome. And Casera, well, how about you?
I'm Casara. I'm currently a grad student doing forensic psychology, but I was working at a recovery center in New Jersey, and I just fell in love with the field and fell in love with the people within the field and kind of the people that we were working with as well. So I wanted to kind of continue to do that and be a part of something bigger. And I came to believe. So now I'm going to be working with the volunteers and just doing some coordination, and then also handling the behind the scenes for like registration for different retreats and kind of getting information about meetings out there, and just kind of supporting everyone wherever they need it. So I'm excited to be here.
I've been really pumped about it because, like, we've gotten used to having Lisa in the background helping us out, but all of a sudden I got like this email of like, hey, what do you guys think for these topics for Recovery Live? And I'm going to organize this stuff, and I'm like, this is great because Tom and I, we just are like trailblazers. We're out making connections. We're a little bit chaotic, definitely unorganized, but it's like who we are. The administrative stuff. It's not us. And if that's you out there, you got to find yourself a Lisa and a Casera, because they will really help get you in line and get you moving forward. Because if it's just Tom and I out, being messy and making connections, we got to do something with what we do. And so we're really happy to have them on board. Little concerned that you fell in love with the addicts, though, because like my wife says, we're really dramatic people. Like that we're real. There's a lot of drama in the world of recovery, and she could be right. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Lisa? Are we a little over the top?
I don't think so. I mean, I have a 4-year-old at home, so that's drama to me. I mean, it's a full meltdown when, her shoe goes on the wrong foot. So maybe I'm just used to it, but I certainly don't think that there's this over dramatic tendency within the community. I haven't found that yet. Maybe people are still treading lightly with me. I don't know.
You said you've hung out with Tom for a long time, so maybe you've just become used to it.
I mean, Tom's a different story. So, he's in a whole different game. I don't even know that that's a characteristic of an addict, so to speak.
I don't want to be too hard on him, but sometimes I feel like he has a meltdown when he can't find a parking spot at the gym. So no, we love Tom. Tom's absolutely amazing. So cool. Well, we got 2 normies on the show and 1 addict. So it seems like a pretty good time to do one of my favorite segments, which was Ask a Normie. And we kind of added a little twist to this one because then they're going to ask an addict. So we're going to go back. We're going to start with the normie questions, then go to the ask an addict questions. And it'll be kind of fun to see because we're just 2 totally different breeds of people. My wife is a normie, and she had no idea what she was in store for when she married me. And we have a lot of jokes about that now, because when I'm all in on something, I'm all in. And then when I'm done with it, I'm on to the next. And she's over in that corner like, hey, I thought we were over here. And I'm like, oh, no, that was so like 2 days ago. I'm over here now, all in on this thing. So we just, we're just 2 different breeds of people. So I'm going to start off. I got five terms, and I want you guys to give me your best idea of what they are. So some of them are funny and some of them are serious terms in the program. So term number 1, and we'll start with you, Casera. What do you think I'm talking about if I said that I was carpet farming?
Oh. Use it in a sentence, please.
I was, man, how do I do it without giving it away? Like, I was in a heavy withdrawal, so I started carpet farming.
It sounds like just like a behavior that you're doing, like a weird behavior to cope with it. Like, I don't know.
Can I buzz in?
It's definitely a weird behavior. How about, what do you think, Lisa?
So when you're combing through your carpet looking for any remnants of leftovers.
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh.
And not to gross anybody out, but it's the number one cause of people accidentally smoking toenails and hair. So that's what it's because you find any little thing in there, then you throw it in, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh, that was not what I thought it was. So that's carpet farming. So 1 point for Lisa. Sorry, Casera, zero. But it is, well, we might give you half a point because it is a bizarre behavior. So we're on that. So when we talk about in recovery having a spiritual awakening, what do you think that means for us?
Am I going first or is Lisa going?
Yeah, you go first.
Oh, I think that there's different things to it. So one, I think, is that finding your higher power and realizing that there is a higher power that you kind of like relinquish yourself to and kind of accept what has been going on in your life, letting it go, and just looking towards that higher power for strength, for guidance, kind of for that support.
Perfect. How about you, Lisa?
I think Sarah got it. I mean, I think it's that whole idea of you haven't been successful in managing what's been going on in your life thus far. So you give yourself up and have this awakening that there is a higher power that can support you and help you through it.
100%. I'll accept that. And maybe I wasn't being fair in this one because it is such a broad topic. And for myself, it was when I actually became a brand new person. It really changed everything about me because who I was before was so controlled in drugs and alcohol. It was like a prison. And when I was finally free and did realize that God would do for me what I couldn't do for myself, I ended up being able to actually live. So I think that's why they use the word awakening. Like it was like I was sleeping before, and now I finally woke up and I'm a brand new person. So perfect. And well, you guys are doing pretty good so far. So I'm going to throw a little curveball in there. What is Narcanon? Narcanon. It sounds like something from the Chronicles of Narnia. Like we're going to Narcanon.
Narcanon. So narc is typically someone who rats you out, right?
Yep.
And then kind of feeding on the Al-Anon. So that's that group. So is it a support group for people that were once narcs?
That's the best I never thought we'd go there. I like that one. It does kind of sound like, hey, I was in court and I started narking on my everybody I knew. It's actually narc. You were so close. Narc is also short for narcotics. So for NA, Narcotics Anonymous, you have the Al-Anon version of Narcotics Anonymous, Narcanon instead of Al-Anon. So
got it.
Yeah, now that's pretty good. I knew that one. It's such a weird word and it's fun to say. So I like that was a good curveball. I like that one. All right. So how about the term? We'll start with you, Casera. The big book talks about alcoholics hitting a state of incomprehensible demoralization. What do you think that looks like?
Like just the point of like inner destruction. So it's when you can no longer mask your chaos. That's like your inner chaos, to the point where it's kind of either it consumes you and then that's it, or you break and it's like a phoenix. You either burn or you rise from the ashes, or you just burn.
Wow, I like that she even threw in our logo. That's bonus points, Lisa. She got one for the answer.
All right.
One for the can't believe reference. How about you, Lisa? What do you think that looks like?
I mean, I think she hit it pretty well. I think it's like that bottom. It's that rock bottom. It's right before you do self-destruct. It's probably the darkest place you could be.
100%. My father-in-law, he's a preacher, and he says he has this line where he says, I don't really tell a lot of people, or he says a lot of people are obsessed with telling the world that they're going to hell. And he said, and I don't understand why that's relevant, because a lot of people already live there in their head. And that's kind of what incomprehensible demoralization was for me, it was hell on earth. And at my point, it was when I was high, I wanted nothing more than to be sober. And when I was sober, I wanted nothing more than to be high. I couldn't figure, like, I just was never content in anything that I could do. I couldn't get high enough. So I think that's great. Bonus points for Casera. Lisa was a great answer. But bonus points for Casera. Then we'll get rid of those.
So
And then
Dale
last,
wants to know real quick on the comments, spiritual experience versus spiritual awakening. What do you see as the difference there?
I do know that in the big book it talks about we've begun to have spirit. I don't know the exact quote, but it's somewhere in step 5. It's one of the promises where it talks about we've moved away from having spiritual opinions and started having spiritual experiences. So like throughout the step process, you have these experiences that lead you all the way into the awakening, which is what the big book talks about, is living in the 4th dimension of existence. Like it's a brand new 100% new whole rewiring of your brain, it feels like. And when you're in these spiritual experiences lead up, so like you have a spiritual experience in step 2 when you decide, holy smokes, this program actually can work for me, there is something out there. But that in and of itself isn't a spiritual awakening. And then you have a spiritual experience in step 3 where you finally like can give yourself to God. And then in 5, when you tell somebody else, you have another spiritual experience. You feel like this stuff lift off you. And then in 7, when you ask God to remove it, you have another spiritual experience. And in 9, when the promises start coming true, you have another spiritual experience. And all of those accumulate in the end to lead you to the spiritual awakening, which is what we've been talking about. So that would be my definition of it. Little curveball of your own there. I was like, I wasn't prepared for that one. All right. Question number 5. Me and my boys were hanging out. I'm going to use it in a sentence right to begin with. Me and my boys were chilling, and all of a sudden I started to see the shadow people.
You know, I've heard my friends talk about this, but I can't remember exactly.
Nothing. Drawing a blank. Did I stump you on? Hey, you can't. I look at Lisa was looking like she's about to click on Google.
I was going to ask the audience for help. Can I phone a friend?
Can we send that? Yeah, phone a friend. SOS. Is that like a craving, like the feeling you want to use again?
It's actually I happen to be a lot of these are more towards towards like what my drug of choice was when I was using. So when you stay up for a long time on like stimulants, you end up seeing stuff in your peripheral vision, and then it gets so bad that you can actually see a shadow person. And it's like all of a sudden you're like, whoa, there's all these people in my yard, and you can like see them running across your yard and stuff like that, and they're obviously not there. So that's what the shadow people are. You guys are going to be full on, like it's almost going to be like you were addicts. You're going to know so much about this by the time we finish the Recovery Live today. So, well, I got my 5 in. Now you guys get to ask me.
All right. So I think ours are a little less tongue in cheek and a little bit more serious. At least mine is. So being a normie, you know, and having addiction in my life around me, I always wondered, is there something that you wish people in your life had done when you were in the thick of it?
You know, it's funny on this side of it, the number one thing that the advice I can give is to let me hit that state of incomprehensible demoralization. It just is. And it's the toughest thing as a loving family member to do, to say, like, I'm going to let you get sicker, because the only way that you can actually recover is if you hit rock bottom. And the only way you can hit rock bottom is if you hurt bad enough. So a lot of the times when family members jump in and try to help, what they're doing is just prolonging it. Even though it looks like they're helping, they're prolonging the rock bottom experience, which the addict needs. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, it's scarier because of the overdose and the harder drugs. And, you know, it's different when it's drinking and marijuana and a little bit of this, but now with the heroin and all that stuff, it's like, man, sometimes it gets really, really hard to let an addict go because of the risk of overdosing and stuff like that. So I really feel for family members in this season.
That's my so my question is, and I'm going to explain it a little too. My question is, why do you think that normies and people that use substances or alcohol are so different? Like you said, we're different breeds. Because to me, it's human experience. Like, obviously, there are things that you went through that I don't understand because I didn't go through the same things. But some of the things you were feeling, like hitting that rock bottom, feeling like you had no way out, like I felt that way. Did I turn to alcohol or substances? No, but that could have been just pure luck that it wasn't presented to me in that time. Um, and just from playing sports, doing things like that, that could have kept me away. But who's to say that, like, if it wasn't presented to me, I wouldn't have chosen that path. So I just think that, like, seeing it as a different breed makes it seem like that I can understand what you went through at all, or that I can relate to you at all. But I think that, like, I can still share those, like, a spiritual awakening or those spiritual experiences, even though maybe I didn't go through um, using a substance in that way.
100%. Like, to take the steps and the results of the steps, I think anybody can do it from start to finish, good, bad, otherwise, in between, old, young, whatever your problems is. And we all have coping mechanisms. We all have these things that for some of us, it's food, and some of us it's work, and some of us it's relationships, and some of us it's drugs. And the difference between somebody who copes with drugs and somebody who's addicted to drugs is that to really understand it as the mental disease that it is. And they don't know exactly the process of it, but you can either be born an addict, which was my case. I had a pretty awesome childhood, and when I first got presented with drugs and alcohol, I just used every day since. It was like I had found what I'd always been looking for. But for some people, it actually erodes and you become an addict over time. And once you become that addict is when it's hard for a normie to understand, because I literally lose control. I would go to bed at night and tell my girlfriend at the time, I'm not using tomorrow. I promise I don't want to. And I would pass a lie detector test. I really was 100% serious about it. And when I'd wake up in the morning, I couldn't even roll out of bed without reaching for the pipe and getting high right away. And so there is just a little bit, like, and once that happens in your brain, I don't know what happens after you get sober, because I haven't studied that part of it, but it is like where my wife has logic and reason. Sometimes I'm just like, boom, I'm on it and I'm going all in it, and I'm crazy for it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm on to the next. I'm bored with that. Let's move on. So it's just a strange thing, because it's a mental problem. It's a mental disease. So, but then again, who's to say we all don't have a little bit of mental problem to begin with, So I do agree with you. We can all relate at some level, but there's something about being an addict that causes other addicts and alcoholics to really understand each other at a level that maybe a normie doesn't.
Respect that answer.
I know, Sean, in like step one, they talk about the allergy a lot, right? I mean, that kind of goes to that biological, like, predisposition. So I wonder, and it's interesting because people have different addictions. I didn't use heroin. I didn't become addicted to alcohol, but I smoked cigarettes for 20 years and I quit that, and it's been 5 years, but I still have that craving. Certain habits and experiences set me up. I'm like, I want a cigarette now. I'm like, what am I talking about? It's been 5 years. Why do I still want that? And even sugar, it's this, once you start eating, a bag of Oreos, you're in it,
Yeah.
So I think there's different types there's obviously different addictions. And I think, as Sarah said, some of us have that predisposition to be drawn, and sometimes it's presented at the wrong time and you fall down the rabbit hole and can't get out, so I think that there are similarities, but I think there is some biological component to it as well.
100%. And it reminds me of this. The other day, a lot of addicts like myself are dual diagnosis. There's a little bit of other mental stuff that goes with it. And one of the things that I struggle with, the only medication for it that works is a narcotic. So my wife's like, I think we really should try this. And I was like, no. I was like, that's a horrible idea. I said, that's just a really, really bad. And she goes, why? Well, because it's a narcotic. I said, I could never do that. And she goes, well, why don't you just take it as prescribed? I'm like, what? Well, yeah. Then like the whole addict community right now that's listening is laughing their butt off because it just doesn't work like that. It's like once the switch is turned on, you lose control. And you were mentioning the allergy, and the best way to describe it is to say, like, try not to eat for 5 days. Make the decision in your mind not to eat, and then see what your body does. Your body eventually makes you eat. Like even if you could say, if you don't eat for 40 days, you'll get $1 billion. And you might try your hardest to not eat for 40 days, but eventually your body's going to say, hey, I'm in control now. I don't care what your mind thinks. We're going to do it my way. Go to McDonald's, get that Big Mac and pound it down. So yeah. Really cool stuff. You guys, I thought you were going to hit me with some fun stuff. Now I'm deep into it.
That's all I had. I just had one. I only prepared one question.
Oh, two.
I didn't have a list of 5. Sorry.
Well,
I have a question.
You have another one. All right.
Yeah. Well, I just thought of it. So I've been in like different meetings before, like they were oriented around like harm reduction, different things like that. But someone brought up one time that she didn't want to be identified based on like having had an addiction. She's like, that's not who I am. It's a part of my story, but it's not who I am. So what do you think about that? Because I think sometimes that does happen. Like sometimes you might become so engulfed in like, I am an addict and that's it. I'm always going to be an addict and I can't do this, I can't do that. Where some people don't want to feel that way. They want to acknowledge that that's part of their story and they can help others and they can go through that and they acknowledge and honor the 12 steps and their higher power, but they also say, that's not who I am. Mm-hmm. That's not my DNA. That's just a piece of my story. So I just was curious what you think about that and kind of like maybe with your own life, how you identify.
Well, so interesting you bring that up because Tom and I were just talking about that earlier this week on Monday. And that's one of the main reasons why we are adamant about saying I'm a recovered alcoholic, because I'm not actually an alcoholic anymore. I will turn alcoholic if I drink. Like I do not get to drink or use drugs. Like that'll bring it back. But as of right now, I'm recovered from it. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't cause me to live. I don't shy away from it. I don't avoid it. It's non-existent. It's as non-existent as I don't like strawberry ice cream, so I just doesn't bother me. I don't care if you're eating strawberry ice cream, that's on you. But it's one of the things I think that we miss in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous that they had in the beginning is that yes, they identified as alcoholics, recovered ones, and then they went on and they became powerful people and they did crazy cool things and they didn't live a 9-to-5 life and they didn't stay stuck in the fact that like, oh, this is me and now I have all these rules. They went on to become fourth dimension people. And as I sit in some meetings, I'm like, man, this is cool and all, but there's more. I always say there's so much more. There's so much more to life than being where some of us end up getting stuck. And for some people, for like old timers, it's a great place. They find their calling there. They find a place to give back, and that's awesome. And we need those people just like anywhere else. But for someone like me, I like to get out in the trenches. I like to go into the world and find people that haven't already ended up there and like to do bigger and crazier things than just that. And my whole life isn't always focused around drugs and alcohol and alcoholism. It's, I have a business and I have a church and I have a family, and it is a fraction of my story. But I do have to remember 10, 11, and 12 every day. I mean, if I don't live on that, I'm toast. And that's one of the reasons I think it is crucial to hear, like, I'm a recovered alcoholic. And it is nice to remember, like, hey, if I go back, I'm in trouble. I lose all this. But as of right now, I'm not that person. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. In some ways it's beneficial, and in some ways I think it holds us back. So yeah.
So we have a question from the audience here. Melissa wants to know if we are Red Sox or Yankees fans.
What? I don't even, is that what is that baseball? I don't even watch it.
Yes, baseball.
I don't really watch any sports. I don't know. I must not be a true American.
I'm a Yankee fan.
Are you?
Yeah, my whole family is. So I just
Jeepers.
Yeah, same. I've just always been around Yankee fans, so by default.
I got a
yeah.
real question then about that is, can you like, I went to a game in the cities, to Twin Cities here. That's what we call the cities. It's not New York, it's Minneapolis, but and it was literally one of the boringest things I ever sat through in my life. I was so unbelievably bored. Do you guys really actually watch the games, or is it just like you just say you're a fan and then you just kind of go on with your life?
I used to watch them. Definitely used to watch them more. I would go to a game. I enjoy going to a baseball game, but I don't actively seek out teams to watch them unless it's something like Subway Series here in New York. Then I might turn it on, but I don't seek them out on the regular.
Yeah, I agree. I like going to them. It's fun when you're there. It's the atmosphere. On TV, I'll get bored.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't. I was like, what is going on? Like, this is crazy boring. But yeah, I went to in my area, the Green Bay Packers are a big deal. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I went to a Packer game, and that was also boring. But we didn't score any touchdowns. We had 0 points. So I guess that would probably be why it was boring. But I don't know, just not a sports person. Not my thing. So now that we've put that subject to rest forever. Move on. So we got Europe. You two are Yankee fans, though. Yankees.
I would identify as a Yankees fan. Yeah.
Okay. Recovered or recovering Yankee?
Probably recovering.
That's yeah. Like I said, I can't handle it. So let me see what I got on my question board. Okay. So neither of you have addiction directly in your family, correct? Like it's not like right in your face as far as your personal lives. Is that accurate?
That is accurate for me anyway.
So I'm kind of interested because I know addiction, and Tom talks about this a lot, about how it's a huge problem. It's a societal problem. How do you see addiction impacting you guys, even though it's not directly in your face? Like, what do you see as a citizen of this country, as a part of your community, where addiction is actually bothering you? And we can start with Casara.
Well, when I was working at the Recovery Center in New Jersey, we did a lot of outreach. So we went to high risk Patterson, New Jersey. It's like really very high risk area. A large homeless population, a lot of substance use. So just being there and just being with everyone and like going around, just walking the streets, talking to everyone, seeing what they needed, if they wanted anything, giving out food, snacks, and things like that, and just getting to know them. And you just see that the stigma that surrounds addiction itself is unbelievable, because some of these people are the nicest, like most generous people I've ever met. And they just want to help others, even though they're stuck in a really poor situation that they just can't quite get themselves out of yet. And even just when I walk by someone on the street that looks like they're struggling, and you just wonder like how they got there, and if they've ever been paid attention to, or offered an ear to listen, or had the opportunity to go to a meeting or go to a retreat, or just have someone really care. And then also from a school perspective, I've done research on how substance use is handled within prisons, on stigma, on the opioid epidemic. We talk about it in class from a legal standpoint and from a psychological standpoint. So it's something that's everywhere, and it does affect everyone. I mean, there's obviously disparities, as with most things. But it's, to me, what's crazy is that, like, I'm a firm believer that it's the first step is just showing someone compassion, and that's all they need. And it's just, to me, that's such an easy thing, right? Like, just show them compassion, show them that you care about them no matter what state they're in, where they're at, and love them in that moment. And it doesn't matter the outcome. It's just you're showing them that you're there for them. And that's so hard for people to do. Like, it just doesn't happen. And I just, even some of the people I met through recovery, like, are some of the most amazing people I have ever met. Like, Lisa's friend Kelly. I love her. And she's just this emits unconditional love, and just watching her work with people and the way they respond to her because she's showing them love and she needs it and she's there to do whatever she can for them. And it just makes me sad when it's like, if we had more people like that would have, and more retreats and everyone like gathering around it, like such the impact that it could have overall on the whole, not only just the US, but even in like across the pond too. And it just makes me think, like I had a friend, he in July passed away from an overdose, and he was this amazing human being. Like he was an amazing human, and he was just struggling because, there weren't the resources that he needed at the moment. He just had a lot of different traumas that he was struggling with. And he'd always say, like, you don't know what I've done, I'm a bad person. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, he was one of the most, like, I can't even explain it. Like, he was just the most wholesome person, and he had such a huge heart, and he was doing whatever he could to pay it forward because he felt like that's what all he could do going forward. And I think that, like, as a nation and all, and resource wise, like, that's who we're failing. We're failing good people just because someone didn't have the time, or we don't have enough money or resources. So it definitely, like, I do have a heart for them, and it may not be in my face, but like I put it in my face. I make myself aware of it. I know what's going on because I do want to make a difference, even if it's like a small one.
That's perfect. That's really good. And you're so on point. It's when I was using, I already felt crappy about myself. I felt bad. I felt like a pile of trash. And obviously that's not who I am, because when I sobered up and became the real me, I became a really generous person who cared about people around me. I was compassionate. And the same thing with Tom. Tom will tell you he was an absolute horrible, self-centered person when he was using. But obviously, watch now that he's sober, what's he doing? He's giving back. He's fully engaged in his community, and we really miss out on it was really awesome what you said, because we really miss out on our true calling, and that's to tell somebody that they're awesome. They already think they're crap. If you can just say, hey, you're actually not as crappy as you think you are, you're actually awesome, and you just keep telling them that, no, you're awesome, and you keep helping them see that and realize, like, hey, if I can change, you can change. If I can get through this, you can get through this. And just keep putting that in their face. That's very, very powerful and crucial. It's actually I have a church with a lot of addicts in it, and that's my favorite thing to go around and do, is just to pat people on the back and say, you're doing a great job. And I do that every Sunday morning. It's like, you are amazing. I love watching you grow. You can do this, and that's the voice they're not hearing, because society's not telling them that. They're not telling them themselves that. And most likely they don't have anyone else in their life that is telling them that. So really good point. I like that. I like what you had to say. I'm gonna hit Lisa with a different question. So you went to tell us about your walk in schooling and what they told you about working with addicts.
Yeah, so I ended up in psychology as my major in undergrad. I was in like my third or fourth year, and I was talking to a professor. She's like, so what are you going to do with psych? Like, why are you doing this? What's your career path? I said, well, I want to go and get my drug and alcohol counseling license, my LCADC. And she's like, well, are you an addict? I said, no. She's like, then you can't. No one's going to listen to you. No one's going to give you the respect you need. You're not going to be effective. Because you don't have that experience, and they don't want to hear from someone who's a non-addict. So I looked at her, I said, okay, now what? So, that one interaction like totally changed the course of where I ended up, so in a way I kind of came full circle by joining Cane's Believe, because at least I might not be using my counseling skills to help people, but I'm able to get the word out and get people connected with help. Yeah, I wasn't an addict myself to alcohol or any illicit drugs, but it surrounded me. I mean, in high school, my two very best friends became addicted to heroin. I mean, they were the closest people in my life, and thank God they both came out of it. One when she was 18 and the other when she was in her mid-20s. But it was such a hard experience for me as a kid, basically. I mean, I was 16, 17 years old, to lose my two best friends to drugs. And, you know, I think back to that and I'm so grateful that they, you know, as Sarah was saying, I could have been in a dark place and they could have said, here, try this. And they never did. They protected me from that in a way, you know, and when they would relapse, they would kind of disappear again. Like they didn't want me to see them that way. You know, and I'm grateful that they are both recovered at this point, you know, and doing amazing things. Because Sarah brought up a mutual friend of ours, and she's just a fierce advocate for addiction, and I'm in awe of her every day of what she does. You know, so I've been exposed to it from a really young age, and you know, it's always been in my heart, because even though again I wasn't the addict, it definitely affected me.
And you guys are both prime examples of what I think you can do to give back, because or get involved in. There is some truth to the fact that addicts don't really respect counselors who aren't addicts. There's just like this wall that's put up. There's also some freedom in me being able to speak the language that an addict is using, or that an addict is saying, and say like, hey, listen, I know incomprehensible demoralization. I know what you're feeling. I know what you're going through, and I got out of it. And the cool thing is that I didn't get out of it by my own doing. There's a way for you to get out of it too. And that's when all of a sudden it clicks. That's how my brain clicked. Like, man, if I can go through with this process, I can get out too. And so there is something that somebody who didn't go through that can't really give back. But we need support. We need like people in the background. There's so, like, while Tom and I can be the face, or the people in our volunteers can be the face that are going out working one-on-one with the addicts in the beginning, you guys are supporting us in the background, making sure we have everything and every tool possible in our belt to make sure we're able to execute. And then in the end, you guys get to get involved and meet some of the people as well and help them grow the rest of the way. So that's one way people can give back, is, you know, find a program like Came to Believe and get in and find where you can volunteer and where you can be of support. The second one is obviously to financially support program like Came to Believe, because we need money to do what we do. So if you don't have the time, but addiction is something you want to see wiped off the face of the earth, you know, find a good place to plug your money in. Came to Believe, I think, is a really good place to do it, but it's up to you and what you want to do. So there's a couple ways to get involved, even as a person who hasn't really experienced it. And then also, everybody has a story, like even you guys, where you say like, it's not in my face, but yet it's still in your face. Like it's still right there. You can help people who are struggling with addicts get through that as well. So, you know, it's a large scale operation to work with the recovery community. So that's pretty cool. I really like your guys' answers. Are there any benefits of the Came to Believe program that you've seen? I know, Sarah, you're relatively new to us, but at least you've been here for a while. So if you do have an answer, though, Sarah, you can chime in. Was there any benefits to the way that we live life that you're like, man, I kind of really want to grab onto that?
Well, one of the things when I started was I came to a virtual retreat. So let me get familiar with the program, see what's going on. And lo and behold, I was taking part in the retreat, which I didn't realize. But so I ended up doing a 4th step inventory. And just that practice of self-reflection, I thought was really useful. And identifying, you know, as a cognitive psychologist would say, you know, faulty thinking, and how to reframe into a positive mindset, and, you know, fear and resentment, things of that nature, and just kind of being present. I mean, in order to do self-reflection, you have to be present in what's happening. And so I think that has been really helpful in just recognizing how I'm thinking and trying to make a conscious effort to change that. So that practice was really helpful for me.
Awesome. How about you, Sarah? Anything?
I do have an answer. It's more of a broad answer, not a specific step, but I think that one thing is definitely like just the idea of like a higher power and kind of like looking to that higher power. I grew up Catholic. We went to church, confession, CCD, confirmation, everything. and like have Bible like in my drawers, whatever, stuff like that. Like, but my dad always said, you don't have to listen to exactly what they're saying. You have to interpret it to yourself and what your understanding of it. Because when you're a kid, you're like, I don't care what John said. Like, who's John? But he would always say, like, just take the understanding and then take it with you and like sit on and reflect on that. And I think that's sometimes it's important. And I had a CCD teacher that said, you don't pray to God for like, don't be like, hey, give me a good grade tomorrow. Like, tell them to give me an A. You say, give me the strength to continue studying even when I'm tired, or, like things like that. And I think that kind of helps, because we get into situations, like a situation I had was when my friend passed away. The day before, he had messaged me like, oh, are you going to be in the recovery center? And I didn't see it until the next day after he had already passed. And immediately I was like, what if I answered? If I answered, like, all I had to do was answer and he would still be here. Like, he would be with us. And I like got caught on that. But then it's like that higher power. I have to realize, like, I don't have that much power. Like, I don't have that kind of power. And I had to remind myself of that, because if I didn't remind myself of that and I didn't recognize that, like, I don't have all that control and that's not in my hands, like, that's a dark, dark path to go down. So I think that just kind of helps everyone. And I mean, do believe in God, but I also like have crystals all over my house. And I believe in different energies, and I believe in different strengths, and different higher beings along with God. That's just what I believe. And I think that does help, because some people might say my crystals don't help, but I think they're clearing the energy in my house and keeping positive vibes. And I also think that, I know Tom said one day that he was doing his daily affirmations, reflections. Is that right? I forget what he said exactly.
Maybe devotions was probably.
Devotions, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But I do something like, I bought this book that's about gratitude, and it's filled with questions. So every night I try to like open to a page, and it'll say like, name a person you were grateful for, and all the things that you appreciate that they do for you. And like it just along those lines, like, what was your favorite part about today, and name 3 things of what made it so great. Because I think it's important to remember gratitude. And I know sometimes I struggle with that, and I'm like, everything sucks. This is the worst day ever. No, it's the worst life ever. And that, again, that can take you down all sorts of paths. So I try to like bring that and recenter to like gratitude for everything that I have, the opportunities I have. And like, everyone, it really is about the little things in life. Like, it's like, you do those little things, like living in the going to a meeting, your devotions, and that makes all the difference.
100%. And I think a lot of what I heard you saying, especially in the beginning, is that one of the things some people are jealous about, those of us in recovery, is that we have a dependence and a reliance and a relationship with God, like that we really have. You talk. I grew up Catholic too, and I went to church a lot, and I knew stuff, but that was about the extent of it. It's like I just kind of knew that there was something, and I knew, but I didn't have a relationship with God until all of a sudden I was in the program. And I don't know the exact quote in the book, and somebody might be able to put it in the comments section, but it was like the single most important fact for thousands of men and women in recovery is their dependence and reliance upon this new higher power, which is something that some people do find really appealing about the way we live. My wife in the beginning she thought it was absolutely awesome, but couldn't wrap her head around how absolutely vulnerable we can be with each other. That's kind of something you're not taught outside of recovery. You kind of put your wall up a little bit, especially she grew up in the church, and you never really showed everybody exactly how you were. But in recovery, it's like, yeah, I stole from my grandma. And then you laugh about it and you say, but I'm a new person now. It's like the people are like, wait, what did you get around some normies and start just revealing all this garbage about your past. They're like, what the heck is going on? Like, you guys talk like that. So Lisa, you said you went through the steps. Because Sarah is a step something. Oh, well, I'll ask you first, Lisa. Do you find that they'd be beneficial for anybody, and like whether or not?
So. I do. I think that there's so much useful information and just experiences throughout the steps that I think listen, nobody's perfect. Like, you know, whether you're battling an addiction or you're battling depression or something else, we all have something that we're working on. And working the steps allows you to work on you and to, you know, connect with that higher power. And sometimes, you know, giving yourself a break and saying, I need to let this go is so important. So absolutely, I think anybody could benefit from working the 12 steps.
So is that something you might consider doing in your future, Casera, is taking a little trip down the 12 steps?
I mean, yeah, why not? I'm just a firm believer that like if it can work for anyone, but like so can crystals can work for anyone, and some other path could work for everyone. So like, why not try it? Because I mean, you don't know until you try. And yeah, I just think that there's a lot of different paths out there, so you might as well try and see which one sticks. Because it could be like some people, it's just making a decision and that's that, or reading a book, or going to the gym, or going through the 12 steps, or practicing harm reduction. Like, there's so many different ways, so why not try them? Because it might work for you.
100%. So I got you guys both signed up for the Amory in person in February. It's really cold. It's like
I go to school.
It could be negative 30. So you dress warm. You're gonna want lots of parkas and face coverings. So
that's too cold for me. Sorry.
That happened once in my lifetime. It was 2 or 3 years ago. It was negative 30 real temp for like a whole week. And so it was actually like, there were some days it was feels like negative 60. So that's my claim to fame, even though it's not really normal, but it was an experience. Trucks, like diesel trucks, like their fuel was actually freezing and they were breaking down on the side of the road because it was just nuts. So awesome. Well, Lisa, I think it's time to give away one of our t-shirts. Do you have one picked out?
I do. Brad Almond.
I think he's from Utah, if I remember correctly. I think he's part of the
You're right.
Yeah, nice to see you, Brad. I haven't seen you in a long time. Well, unless you guys have something else, I think we can wrap this baby up. I think it's been a phenomenal show. It's awesome to have two people outside of the box, and I'd love to get some more people outside of I know you guys are cut of the same cloth as far as came to believe, but you know, Casera, you've been mentioning that it'd be awesome to get some outside voices in here too as well, so we can really discuss some topics deeper, because you don't really know what you know until you have to kind of share it with someone else. And then also, like, it's really, you might change your perspective just a little bit when you hear somebody else's. So we are absolutely jacked that you guys joined us today. We are here every Friday, 11 o'clock Central, 12 Eastern, and 5 o'clock in the UK. We would love to have you join us and to share this message with everybody we can, because we want people to know that there's other things out there. Like Casera was saying, you don't know until you try. You don't know until you've given it a shot. And a lot of people think there's only one way to do it, but there's not. There are other options, and we are one of those other options. So the more we can get out and in front of other people, the more that we can try to release this freedom that we've experienced. So share us, like us, send us to a friend. And if you can't do any of those things, come check us out here every Friday, Recovery Live. Hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you next week.
Bye.